Homeland Security arrested 11 undocumented workers after executing a search warrant.
An about-face by the Trump administration. CBS News has learned the White House is pausing.
How could a quiet stretch of Florida highways conceal one of the largest human trafficking networks ever exposed in the American South? That's the question that jolted investigators this year when Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, supported by ICE and Homeland Security agents, dismantled a trafficking ring that had embedded itself into the everyday economy right under the noses of the public. What looked like ordinary massage parlors, trucking stops, and short-term rentals were in fact the facade of a sprawling criminal enterprise moving people and profits across state lines. Authorities revealed that this network operated with precision fake business licenses, encrypted online ads, and transient workers shuffled through multiple cities every few weeks to avoid detection. The operation blended foreign nationals with domestic victims, exploiting both through coercion and economic manipulation. According to Reuters and DHS field updates, similar hybrid trafficking models have surfaced in Texas, California, and Georgia, signaling that this was no isolated case, but part of a coordinated national pattern. Under President Trump's renewed federal mandate against organized crime and trafficking in 2025, local sheriffs have gained direct access to interagency intelligence streams. Sheriff Judd's office used those channels to cross-link suspicious property leases and payment transfers flagged by Homeland Security investigations. Analysts later discovered that at least 3 of the arrested suspects had prior ties to illicit labor networks identified in the 2023 Tampa-Orlando corridor probe. Experts from Jane's and the BBC noted how the ring's operational design mirrored cartel logistics, decentralized control, cash-only transactions, burner phones, and layered recruitment. The traffickers even utilized rideshare and delivery apps to move victims between motels, blending movement with normal consumer traffic. Yet the most shocking revelation wasn't the technology, it was the complicity. Several suspects held valid U.S. business licenses, some even registered for state tax IDs. As former ICE Director Tom Homan commented to The Guardian, "These traffickers have learned to wear legitimacy like armor. They don't hide in alleys anymore, they rent storefronts." This first phase of the investigation exposed a disturbing truth. The U.S. trafficking infrastructure is now adapting faster than most enforcement models. Victims were not chained or hidden. They were trapped through debt bondage, digital surveillance, and threats to families abroad. As DW reported in March 2025, human trafficking rings have increasingly leveraged global migration instability, exploiting people fleeing from conflicts in Eastern Europe and the Middle East, particularly women displaced by the Russia-Ukraine and Israel-Iran wars. The Polk County network's victim profiles align closely with that emerging trend. The question now, how many more of these legitimate fronts still operate across America's suburbs, quietly feeding an underground market of exploitation? The takedown didn't happen overnight. It was the product of meticulous planning, intelligence sharing, and relentless coordination between local and federal authorities. The blueprint of the operation began months earlier under the codename Operation Fool Around and Find Out, one of the most comprehensive human trafficking stings in Florida's history. Sheriff Grady Judd's office, in alliance with ICE and the Department of Homeland Security, assembled a hybrid task force that blended local street knowledge with federal-level surveillance capabilities. The operation's structure resembled a military campaign. A command center was established in an undisclosed location in Polk County, equipped with encrypted communication links and real-time data feeds from multiple jurisdictions. Over 120 undercover officers rotated through surveillance teams, social media monitoring, and decoy operations. Intelligence analysts from Homeland Security mapped out the traffickers' digital ecosystem, online ads, cryptocurrency payments, and hotel booking patterns. Each clue fed into an evolving operational matrix that revealed a network far more intricate than expected. What made this operation different was its integration with federal counter-trafficking doctrine updated in 2024 under President Trump's directive that reinforced interagency cooperation. According to Defense News and The Guardian, new digital forensic systems now allow ICE to analyze financial and communication metadata without lengthy bureaucratic hurdles. This real-time intelligence proved crucial when agents tracked multiple suspects transferring illicit profits through crypto exchanges in Miami and Los Angeles, connecting the Polk County network to parallel cases on both coasts. The arrests didn't just rely on technology. Human sources, many of them former victims, played an instrumental role. These insiders revealed patterns, the traffickers' use of prepaid travel cards, rotating phone numbers, and their obsession with maintaining clean fronts. The BBC's security desk later compared this structure to narco-organization compartmentalization, a tactic meant to limit the exposure of top leaders if lower tiers are compromised. When the sting launched in early 2025, the results were overwhelming. Within 72 hours, dozens of locations were raided simultaneously, coordinated through live tactical feeds. Officers used encrypted radios and drone reconnaissance to ensure synchronized entry. In one raid, ICE agents discovered a concealed ledger detailing over $2.4 million in transfers spanning 8 U.S. states and involving hundreds of clients. Experts described it as a surgical strike against a domestic trafficking cartel. A senior analyst from Jane's remarked that the scale and precision mirrored a counterterrorism operation more than a conventional police raid. In total, 255 arrests were made, including business owners, facilitators, and high-value repeat offenders. But beyond the tactical success lies a larger question. If one county can conceal a trafficking empire of this magnitude, how many other jurisdictions are unknowingly hosting similar operations? Could the federal government's current tools scale fast enough to detect them before they rebuild elsewhere? At the core of the crackdown stood a formidable federal presence, immigration and customs enforcement. ICE acted as the force multiplier that elevated Polk County's operation from a local investigation to a nationwide model of modern enforcement. With Homeland Security Investigations (HSI) embedded directly in the sheriff's command structure, ICE agents wielded authorities that extended across borders, tracking money movement and networks that local police simply couldn't reach. The 2025 iteration of ICE's mandate, reaffirmed by President Trump's administration, restored full operational latitude to pursue trafficking and transnational criminal enterprises. That policy shift enabled federal teams to attach immigration detainers to high-risk suspects, immediately preventing early release and ensuring prosecution under both state and federal statutes. The move was lauded by Reuters as a return to pre-2020 enforcement discipline, a framework that allows deeper coordination with local law enforcement without bureaucratic delays. Within the Polk County operation, ICE's HSI analysts built detailed profiles of suspects' movements and finances. They uncovered direct links between Florida-based recruiters and offshore intermediaries operating through Mexico, Honduras, and even Eastern Europe. This finding aligns with a Defense News report suggesting that criminal supply chains have diversified after pandemic-era travel restrictions, using global instability, especially around the Russia-Ukraine and Israel-Iran conflicts, to mask cross-border movement of exploited individuals. Experts like Robert Mazur, a former undercover U.S. Customs agent, emphasized in a BBC interview that traffickers today mirror cartel sophistication, using layered shell companies, foreign brokers, and encrypted channels to stay one step ahead. ICE's role in unmasking those layers was decisive. Agents traced crypto wallets, intercepted digital ads posted in Mandarin and Spanish, and worked with foreign attachés to identify recruiters abroad. Beyond arrests, ICE's embedded units implemented victim-centered protocols, partnering with NGOs trained under the DHS Blue campaign to separate rescued individuals from their traffickers instantly. Victims were provided medical care, legal protection, and interpreters, an approach praised by The Guardian as a rare balance between enforcement and humanitarian relief. Perhaps the most significant outcome was the exposure of foreign national facilitators holding temporary U.S. visas, some tied to fraudulent labor recruitment schemes. ICE issued multiple visa fraud indictments, setting a precedent for targeting the administrative pipelines that traffickers exploit. Strategically, this success resonates far beyond Florida. Analysts from DW observed that such integrated enforcement mirrors NATO's intelligence sharing architecture, fusing local precision with central oversight. If replicated nationwide, this model could redefine how the United States counters organized exploitation. Still, one looming question persists as trafficking networks evolve. Will ICE's expanded authorities be enough to dismantle them faster than they adapt, or will the criminals simply reconstitute under new identities and jurisdictions? Beneath the statistics and tactical reports lies a deeper story of technology, deception, and survival. The Polk County operation revealed how traffickers are weaponizing modern tradecrafts, turning ordinary tools of convenience into instruments of exploitation. From ride-sharing apps to cashless payment systems, every piece of civilian infrastructure was quietly repurposed to maintain control over victims and evade law enforcement. Investigators discovered that traffickers managed their operations through a central hotel command node, a mid-tier lodging facility near Lakeland that acted as a rotating base of logistics. Inside, ICE agents found a fully equipped communications suite, multiple phones, ledgers, counterfeit IDs, and an encrypted laptop linked to an offshore messaging hub. Forensic teams traced hundreds of text messages coordinating deliveries coded in time slots that aligned with peak check-in hours. The sophistication rivaled that of organized crime syndicates rates previously observed in narcotics operations. In 2025, technology has become the new front line of trafficking. Homeland Security analysts confirm that criminal groups increasingly rely on geotagging and encrypted messaging to manage victims' movements. This mirrors tactics observed in war zones, particularly in Russia's occupation logistics, and Iran's proxy networks where low-cost digital coordination maximizes reach while minimizing exposure. During the operation, ICE's cybercrimes unit deployed AI-based surveillance filters that scanned thousands of classified ads and social media listings, identifying phrasing consistent with trafficking lures. This technology, similar to the tools used in counterterrorism, narrowed down dozens of high-risk profiles within hours. According to Reuters, the system was developed under a Pentagon-backed program first tested in counter-ISIS operations. Yet the human dimension remained central. Non-governmental organizations, including certified trauma response units, were embedded with law enforcement teams. Their task was to intervene at the moment of rescue, providing victims with psychological stabilization, translation, and protection against traffickers' retaliation. The BBC reported that several rescued women had been trafficked multiple times across different states and feared deportation. ICE's Victim Witness program, restructured in 2024, guaranteed them humanitarian parole and access to legal advocacy. Forensic accountants from Jane's Defense Weekly highlighted another overlooked battlefield: money laundering. The traffickers funneled profits through online gambling sites, foreign remittance apps, and cryptocurrency exchanges. Agents tracked wallets transacting over $1.8 million across 14 accounts in 3 countries. The financial trace not only dismantled the ring's funding, but also revealed potential overlaps with organized narcotics and cyber fraud operations under investigation in California and Texas. Experts from DW and The Guardian underscored the parallel between such criminal innovation and the hybrid warfare doctrine increasingly shaping global conflicts. Just as Russia uses private military companies to obscure responsibility, traffickers use digital ecosystems to mask accountability. Both depend on deniability and decentralized command structures, a convergence that complicates modern policing. With technology evolving faster than regulation, one pressing question emerges: can law enforcement agencies maintain the technological edge necessary to predict, not just react to criminal innovation? When dawn broke over Polk County after the coordinated raids, the numbers told a story as devastating as it was revealing. 205 suspects were taken into custody, a mix of pimps, recruiters, customers, and facilitators, some with criminal records stretching back decades. ICE confirmed that 41 of the detainees were foreign nationals under active detainer orders, while several others were previously convicted sex offenders who had violated interstate travel restrictions. The immediate impact was seismic, effectively dismantling what local officials called a shadow industry thriving in plain sight. Sheriff Grady Judd stated in a press briefing that among those arrested were teachers, nurses, truck drivers, and former servicemen, proof that trafficking's consumer base is disturbingly ordinary. Over 20 firearms, thousands of dollars in cash, and digital devices containing tens of thousands of encrypted messages were seized. A senior Homeland Security investigator told Reuters that the data extraction alone will feed new investigations for years. What made these arrests more significant was their deterrent effect. Following the operation, Florida's neighboring counties reported a 60% drop in online solicitation postings within 48 hours, a statistic later confirmed by BBC monitoring teams. Experts attribute this to the fear generated by Operation Fool Around and Find Out's high-profile success and its relentless publicity. Strategically, the crackdown aligns with President Trump's national agenda to restore law and order, emphasizing direct enforcement against cross-border crime. Defense news analysts compared the coordination model used in Polk County to NATO's counter-hybrid doctrine, multiple agencies sharing intelligence to neutralize asymmetric threats. This interagency synergy, previously tested in anti-gang operations in California and Texas, has now become a template for trafficking interdiction nationwide. The suspect's threat profile was alarming. At least 22 individuals were connected to broader criminal networks, including money laundering cells with potential links to Mexican cartels and Balkan trafficking routes. Jane's Defense Weekly noted how some of these organizations operate under the same decentralized model used by mercenary groups in Eastern Europe, non-hierarchical, flexible, and built for fast recovery after losses. For Polk County, however, the results were tangible. Within weeks, human trafficking calls to local hotlines surged, indicating a rise in public awareness. Rescue NGOs reported over 100 victims identified, most now placed under federal protection. The Guardian highlighted that this data demonstrates not only enforcement success, but also a cultural shift. Victims are beginning to see U.S. law enforcement as an avenue of safety rather than fear. The broader implications stretch beyond one state. With growing instability in Latin America and ongoing wars fueling global migration, trafficking pipelines are expected to diversify even further. DW analysts warned that the collapse of one network often leads to fragmentation, where smaller cells reform under new branding within months. So as federal and local agencies celebrate this victory, one question looms: can Deterrence sustain itself, or will the absence of long-term funding and oversight allow another hidden empire to rise from the shadows? In the aftermath of Operation Fool Around and Find Out, Polk County became a case study for the nation, proof that with coordination, technology, and political will, large-scale human trafficking networks can be dismantled inside U.S. borders. Yet as the dust settles, policymakers, defense strategists, and humanitarian experts are already dissecting what comes next. At the national level, the Department of Homeland Security is using the Polk County model to develop a repeatable operational framework, one that can be deployed swiftly across states, showing similar trafficking indicators. A DHS report leaked to Reuters in August 2025 indicated plans to establish regional rapid response cells, combining ICE, FBI, and local task forces under a unified chain of command. This new approach mirrors the counterinsurgency tactics the U.S. used in Iraq and Afghanistan, simultaneous pressure on logistics, funding, and recruitment designed to collapse the ecosystem before it regenerates. Meanwhile, the U.S. Congress, backed by the Trump administration, is pushing through new legislation expanding electronic surveillance permissions for anti-trafficking investigations. Civil liberties advocates have raised concerns, but national security experts counter that the evolving digital landscape demands proactive adaptation. As BBC analysts noted, the next battlefield is online, and traffickers are already fighting there. From a global standpoint, the Polk County sting echoes far beyond America's borders. Europol and Interpol have expressed interest in replicating its data integration model, particularly for tracking victims trafficked from Eastern Europe and conflict zones in the Middle East. According to DW, Germany's Federal Criminal Police Office has already requested intelligence sharing agreements with U.S. agencies for coordinated action against cross-border trafficking networks tied to the Balkans. At the same time, strategic analysts warn of an uncomfortable truth: the war on human trafficking is now part of the same transnational struggle that defines modern hybrid warfare. Criminal syndicates often overlap with cyber groups, weapons smugglers, and state proxies exploiting migration flows for political leverage. Defense News drew a parallel between trafficking routes and arms smuggling corridors used by militias in Syria and the Sahel. In both cases, chaos is currency. This convergence is forcing NATO and Western security alliances to rethink internal resilience. If trafficking finances criminal logistics and undermines societal stability, it is in essence a security threat, not merely a social issue. The Guardian quoted a senior NATO intelligence officer stating every victim rescued in Florida reduces a line of credit for organized crime abroad. As the U.S. plans its next phase, expanding cross-state intelligence hubs and tightening visa screening, the core question remains: can enforcement alone defeat a system driven by global inequality, conflict, and corruption? Or will the same forces fueling war overseas continue to feed exploitation at home? The Polk County operation was a victory, but perhaps only the first in a much longer campaign to dismantle the hidden machinery of human trafficking before it adapts again. The Polk County operation exposed how human trafficking in 2025 has evolved into a hybrid criminal network blending local businesses, digital deception, and international logistics. With 255 arrests and hundreds of victims rescued, the sting showcased the effectiveness of multi-agency coordination, ICE, DHS, and local law enforcement acting as one. Under President Trump's renewed mandate on domestic security, this effort became a blueprint for modern enforcement balancing aggressive prosecution with victim protection. Analysts from Reuters, BBC, and Janes observed that the network's tactics mirrored cartel and hybrid warfare models, adaptive, decentralized, and reliant on digital anonymity. The U.S. response, equally adaptive, applied real-time intelligence, AI-driven surveillance, and interagency data fusion. Yet beyond success, the case exposes a grim reality. As wars and instability abroad intensify, exploitation at home becomes easier to disguise. The lessons are clear. Trafficking is no longer a backstreet crime. It's a transnational enterprise that threatens social and national stability. Its defeat will require sustained intelligence, global cooperation, and public awareness. Will America's next operation strike even deeper, or will the traffickers evolve faster than justice itself? Subscribe now and stay tuned as we track the next phase in this ongoing fight.